You ever notice how certain places feel wrong, even when nothing's happening? That kind of silence that doesn't just sit, it presses down on you, makes your skin prickle. That's how I felt about Deck 7 on the Aurora Star. At 2:17 every night without fail, the electronic lock would click, and the access lights above the stairwell turned red. Crew said it was maintenance. A few joked it was ghost hour. I laughed the first week, but then I started to feel it. The quiet down there wasn't the kind that meant empty. It was the kind that meant waiting. The first time I tried to bring it up at dinner, the others looked at me like I'd asked why the sun comes up. Ships have sections that close off at night, my friend Angela said, waving her fork. Safety, power saving, don't overthink it. But it's the exact same time, I said. 2:17, not 2 o'clock. Not 2:30, 2:17. She smirked. Maybe that's when the ghosts punch in. The table chuckled. I forced a laugh too, but my mind was already ticking. 2:17. That precision felt intentional. For nights I lay awake in my cabin, listening to the faint groan of the hull, the distant hum of engines. I'd picture the sealed deck below. Corridors dark, empty, or maybe not. My curiosity itched like a mosquito bite. Finally, one night I couldn't take it anymore. I slipped out barefoot in sweats, heart already hammering. The hallway clocks read 2:11. I padded down the stairwell, every creak sounding like a gunshot in the quiet. The lock on Deck 7 glowed green, still open. I waited. My breath felt too loud, like it would give me away. At 2:17 sharp, the lock clicked, and the light turned red. I was on the inside now. At first it looked normal, a wide corridor with polished floors and evenly spaced doors. But the air felt heavy, like the oxygen wasn't moving. And then I heard them. Footsteps, low voices. I pressed myself against the wall as a group of men rounded the corner. Their uniforms were crisp but wrong, navy blue with brass buttons, caps I'd only ever seen in old photos. The fabric looked worn, like they'd stepped straight out of another century. They didn't notice me. They marched past, faces slack, eyes dull, each step identical to the last. One man muttered something under his breath, then repeated it again, word for word, like a broken record. I followed, slowly. They filed into a lounge, smoky, though no cigarettes burned. The same 6 men sat at the same table, lifting cards, laying them down, over and over, an endless hand that never finished. A steward pushed a cart back and forth, never stopping, never pouring a drink. And then I saw her, a woman in a long stewardess skirt, hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful. She stood by the porthole gazing out at the dark water. Her lips moved like she was whispering. I stepped closer, straining to hear. Not yet, she breathed. Not yet, soon. Her eyes snapped to mine. I froze. The room didn't stop, not exactly, but I felt the change. The air thinned. The shuffling of cards slowed, dragging like tape losing speed. She pointed at me, her finger trembling. He's late. The voices around the table repeated it in a low chorus. He's late. He's late. He's late. My throat locked. I stumbled backward, but the corridor behind me had shifted. Longer, darker, no exit in sight. I ran. The crew moved too. Not chasing, but appearing ahead of me, around corners, filling doorways. Their faces blurred, eyes black pits. Their mouths worked in unison, muttering, "Stay, stay, stay." I bolted through them, skin cold where they brushed me. My legs carried me blind, desperate, until finally I slammed into the stairwell door. I twisted the handle, locked. The clock on the wall ticked, 2:28. I pounded my fists. The chanting swelled behind me. "Stay, stay, stay." And then the lock clicked. The door swung open. I collapsed into the stairwell, gasping, heart in my throat. The red light above the door flicked back to green. It was 2:31. When I told Angela the next morning, she laughed until she saw my face. "You're serious?" "I saw them," I whispered. "Old crew, like they've been here forever." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and set her hand on mine. "Don't go back there." Her tone wasn't playful. It was warning. Of course I didn't listen. Curiosity's a poison. The more I tried to stay away, the more the memory gnawed at me. The dull faces, the endless repetition, the woman at the porthole. Not yet. Soon. 2 nights later I went back. This time I didn't come out. That's the part you need to understand. The moment the door sealed, the air shifted, and I knew I wasn't a passenger anymore. I was crew. My hands wouldn't stop shuffling cards. My mouth kept repeating the same words. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out except the same tired phrase, "Your turn, your turn, your turn." And somewhere beyond the glass, the woman whispers to the waves, "Not yet, soon." I first noticed it by accident. The Mariner Dawn was a massive ship, 17 decks tall. So many hallways and turns it felt like a floating city. I'd gotten lost heading back from the casino. 3 drinks in, half dizzy, pockets lighter than when I started. That's when I saw the door. Suite 707 Sen. It shouldn't have been there. I checked the map bolted to the wall. 711, 713, 715. Then the corridor curved. No 717. No dead end. Just white space where the map swore there was nothing. And yet the door stood there. Rich mahogany. Polished brass number plate. Not the cookie cutter cabin doors everyone else had. This one was inviting. Like it had been waiting for me. I don't know why I knocked. Maybe because I was drunk. Maybe because I felt like I'd been there before. A memory tugged at me. Faint as a dream you almost remember. The knob turned easily. Inside, a suite larger than my apartment back home. Plush carpet, velvet drapes, a king bed made with hospital corner precision. The air smelled faintly of salt water and lavender. A chilled bottle of champagne sat in a silver bucket, beads of condensation running down its side. It looked lived in but untouched, like someone had just stepped out for a smoke. I should have left, closed the door and laughed at myself. But the strangest thing was, my keycard worked, slid in, beeped green, just like it belonged to me. So I stayed. That night I dreamed of water, endless black waves crashing over me, dragging me down. I kicked and clawed, but the sea filled my mouth, my chest, my lungs. I woke gasping, coughing up brine that stung my throat. The sheets were damp. My skin smelled of salt. I told myself it was a nightmare, just a nightmare. But when I padded across the carpet to the bathroom, my footprints stayed behind, wet, shining, like I'd come straight from a swim. And by the time I came back, they'd vanished. The next morning at breakfast, I asked the steward about the suite. "Excuse me," I said casual, like I wasn't trembling inside. "Suite 717, beautiful room. Do you know who stayed there before me?" He blinked at me. "Sir, there is no 717. I laughed. "No, really. I slept there last night." He leaned closer, lowered his voice. "That room doesn't exist." I wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped me cold. Not confusion, fear. I checked the ship's official map again. Nothing, just a blank stretch of corridor. But when I walked down that hall later, the door was there, waiting. Same polished brass, same dark wood, like it had grown out of the wall. I told myself I wouldn't go in, that I'd stay strong. But that night, after too many restless hours, I found myself sliding the card through the lock. Green light, click. I went inside. The dreams got worse, drowning, every single night. Sometimes I was alone. Sometimes I saw faces through the waves, men, women, children, all sinking with me, mouths open in silent screams, their eyes wide, accusing. I woke each time choking, clawing at the sheets, coughing up seawater. My chest ached, my throat burned, and the room itself seemed to change. The drapes hung damp, the carpet squished underfoot. A faint dripping sound echoed from nowhere, steady as a heartbeat. Still, I couldn't stop going back. One evening I cornered Angela, a woman I'd met at the bar earlier in the trip, told her everything. "You're serious?" she said, frowning. "Come with me," I begged. "I'll show you." We walked the corridor together. The door wasn't there. I swear to you it wasn't. Just smooth wall. I ran my hands along it, frantic, certain I'd missed something. Angela's face was pale. "Maybe you should see the doctor. You don't look good." But later that night, when I went alone, the door had returned, waiting. On the fifth night, I tried to leave for good, packed my bag, determined to sleep in the lounge chairs by the pool if I had to. But when I reached the exit, locked. Every hallway funneled me back, every stairwell twisted wrong. I knew the ship's layout by heart, but it didn't matter. In the end, exhausted, I stumbled right back to Suite 717. The knob turned like it was greeting me home. This time the room was flooded ankle deep. Salt water lapped at the furniture. The champagne bucket floated sideways, spilling flat bubbles. I tried to back away, but the door slammed shut behind me, locked. The water rose quickly, swirling around my knees, then waist. I pounded on the door, screaming, but the sound was swallowed. The porthole burst open, and the sea came pouring in. I screamed until the water filled my mouth. My lungs burned, my vision blurred, and then I woke, back in the bed, sheets soaked, chest aching, the dripping sound steady in the silence. I staggered to the mirror. My skin was gray, my eyes bloodshot, my hair still damp. The carpet was dry though. No sign of flooding, no proof, except the footprints, trailing behind me, wet and shining, leading from the bed to the mirror, and stopping. No return trail. The steward saw me later that day. He froze, then muttered a prayer under his breath. "You should not have gone in there," he whispered. "That room, it remembers." I grabbed his sleeve. "What does that mean?" He shook his head, eyes wet. "Once it takes you, it doesn't let go. Some doors aren't meant to be opened." I tried to stay awake after that, drank coffee until my hands shook, prowled the upper decks, fighting the exhaustion. But sometime near dawn, I must have dozed off in a chair. When I opened my eyes, I was back in 717. The water was already waist deep. The door wouldn't budge. I screamed until salt filled my throat. My last breath burned like fire, and when the sea swallowed me whole, I finally remembered where I'd seen this room before. I'd drowned here once already. The first time I saw it, I thought my eyes were playing tricks. We were 3 days into the cruise, somewhere in the North Atlantic. The sun was dropping low, smearing the horizon with blood-red streaks. When I spotted it, a lighthouse, broken and leaning, its tower cracked, the lantern shattered. At first, nothing seemed strange, but then I realized it never got closer. No matter how far we sailed, no matter how long I watched, it stayed fixed on the horizon. Same distance, same angle, always waiting. And here's the thing, no one ever mentioned it, not the captain, not the crew, not the other passengers, like it wasn't even there. The next evening I tried. At dinner, I leaned toward Angela, one of those people you bond with quickly on a ship. "You see that lighthouse last night?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. She frowned. "What lighthouse?" "Out on the horizon. Looked like it was falling apart." She shook her head. "There's nothing out here, believe me, I checked the map." I almost pushed, but something about the way her eyes slid away made me stop. The third night I saw her, a little girl, no older than 7, standing at the rail near the bow, curly hair, white sundress whipping in the sea wind. She was staring at the horizon, right where the lighthouse burned faintly against the dying light. I moved closer. "Pretty view, huh?" She didn't turn, just whispered, "They're calling me." A chill ran down my spine. "Who's calling you?" Her tiny hand lifted, pointing straight at the lighthouse. "The people inside, they know my name." I laughed nervously. "You probably dreamed it." But her eyes stayed locked on the tower. "No, they said I belong there." Something about the way she said it, calm, certain, made my stomach drop. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing her small figure at the railing, staring into the red haze, hearing voices I couldn't. The next morning she was gone. I asked around casually at breakfast. No one had seen her. At lunch I asked again. Still nothing. By evening I was desperate. Finally I cornered a steward. The little girl, curly hair, white dress. "She was by the railing last night. You know who she's with?" He looked at me blankly. "Sir, we have no children on this voyage." I almost laughed. "What are you talking about? I saw her with my own eyes." But he just shook his head, polite but firm, like I was a drunk making trouble. "You must be mistaken." I went back to the spot on deck where she'd stood. The sun was setting, and sure enough, the lighthouse was waiting. I swear to you, I heard it then. Not words, not exactly. A faint hum, a rhythm, like a voice carried on the wind. And underneath it, a child's laugh. High, sweet, unmistakable. Her laugh. I pressed my hands to my ears, but it didn't stop. The sound was inside me now, worming down into my chest. They know my name. I remembered her saying it, and suddenly I realized I hadn't asked what her name was. That night I dreamed of the lighthouse. I was walking its cracked stairs, each step slick with seawater. Shadows moved just out of sight, whispering in voices I couldn't pin down. At the top, the lantern room yawned open, empty, broken glass crunching underfoot, and there she was, the girl, standing in the middle of the room, eyes black as the sea. "You're late," she whispered. "They've been waiting for you." And then the shadows surged forward. I woke with a scream lodged in my throat, sheets damp with sweat. I tried to tell Angela the next morning. She listened, pale, her fork forgotten on her plate. "That's not funny," she whispered. "I'm not joking." She leaned closer. "You don't talk about the lighthouse. You understand? You pretend you don't see it. Everyone does." My blood ran cold. "So you do see it?" She glanced around, then shook her head violently. "No, and neither do you. Forget it." "But how do you forget something that stares at you every night, that waits for you?" The following evening, I stood alone at the railing. The lighthouse was there, fractured against the crimson sky, and I heard her voice again. "Come closer." It was clear now, direct. The ship's deck felt wrong beneath my feet, like the boards were tilting toward the horizon. The water stretched out, endless, and for the first time, I had the terrible sense that the ship wasn't moving at all, that we'd been anchored in place the whole time, just circling the same ghostly beacon. I thought of the girl, if she was ever real. I thought of the crew insisting she never existed. I thought of the laughter in my dream, and then faint but certain, I heard my own name carried across the waves, whispered from the lighthouse. I don't remember stepping onto the railing, don't remember leaning forward into the wind, but I do remember the cold shock of the sea, salt in my mouth, darkness all around, and far off through the water, the faint glow of the broken lantern, drawing me closer. I don't think I drowned. Not exactly, because I can still hear them, the voices inside the tower, the girl's laugh circling me like a rope, and I know sooner or later, someone else will look out across the horizon. They'll see the broken lighthouse, they'll hear us calling, and when they do, we'll know their name.